Hello and welcome. We are thrilled to welcome you to Discover SAP Enterprise Product Development event for November 2023 edition. We are excited to take you through the journey into the cloud PLM with SAP Enterprise Product Development. Today, our expert speakers are here to guide you through the world of product development with SAP PLM software. You will gain valuable insights into cutting-edge advancements and strategic plans that we believe will shape the future of PLM at SAP.
We have the goal to be your co-pilot when you transform your PLM into the cloud, because we realize that can be quite tricky from time to time, especially when you have SAP PLM software already installed on-premise or in a private cloud. Using more and more with our cloud services we provide, we realize you need a strong co-pilot. It is important to contextualize the why. And in order to understand the why, it is important to also understand the challenges we see when we talk with our customers, when we talk with our partners. And there are three things I would like to highlight. The number one is the products out there are getting more complex from year to year. That is a fact. And they're getting more complex in all the industry segments. In discrete manufacturing, it is a combination of MCAD, ECAD, and software, which puts a big stress on the entire product lifecycle for companies. We see a similar situation in process industries as well, because there we have a new regulatory compliance requirements coming in, and to be honest, they differ right from country to country. How do you manage all of these compliance-related tasks? So you have sustainability coming into the picture. And also what I want to say is also in process industries for consumer products. And as a result of that, when we analyze the system landscapes of our customers, we see a lot of point-to-point custom developed integrations. These point-to-point cloud integrations are good for now. But whenever you run into a major disruption, either in your supply chain or if you need to innovate, these point-to-point integrations, they are doomed to fail in the future. Because as the complexity increases, right, what we see also with many customers is that the time to market tends to increase. We see this in the automotive industry, where the entire automotive industry is struggling big time to deliver the products into the market because it's quite challenging to manage all the different variability of the products with the compliant regulations, etc. But again, it's a common theme across industries. As a result, as the go-to-market or time to market takes longer, the R&D spend tends to increase. And with that, the ability to innovate is reducing. And at the end of the day, right, it boils down, and I'm going to super simplify things now. As a result of these point-to-point integrations, what we observe is engineering teams across the supply chain, they start to copy and paste data. But every time you copy and paste data gets lost. Something happens, and then you cannot be a truly digital company if you need to copy and paste. So our North Star goal is to enable our customers, both in discrete and process industries, to deliver the right product at the right time at the right price. And it is our core belief that you can only capture this value proposition when you have a cloud-based PLM solution, because the cloud-based solution will enable us to collaborate based on product data, based on one single source of truth. So, for example, the next time you run into a product change need, the single source of truth we provide within the solution will help you basically to make an impact analysis across the different systems which are involved in product development. This does not mean that we will all do all the offering in EPD. Obviously not, right? There will be also kind of tools outside. But the key ambition is basically to have a smart integration framework so that you can basically bring all of the participants in the supply chain together, have an end-to-end business process, and based on the right context, provide the right information someone will need. And that is what we're trying to do. And the cloud is going to be very instrumental to achieve this. Okay, so that is a key message. If you want to capture this value, we need to be in the cloud.
So when I created this slide, I started basically with the time when I started joining SAP. So this was early 90s. And at this time, PLM meant basically for SAP, it meant we create product data. So there was essentially no integration between the CAD world, which at this time was basically synonym for product lifecycle management, or at this time it was called product data management. And we dealt basically with how do we create the master data, how do we upload documents, visuals, or references to the CAD in a manual as links. Applications were be isolated and there was no, let's say, utilization of PLM or integration into downstream processes. It was basically a manual process and reuse of master data. Then basically the 90s and the 2000s was all about integration. So how can we leverage the value which PLM provides in the downstream processes? So we basically built the integrations, we built the handover, we utilized the DCAD drawings through visualization, we started utilizing the metadata which we have in visual models. Similar for process industries with specification and recipe and handover, developed an end-to-end process. Realizing over time products get more complex, more and more players and stakeholders get involved. So basically the entire process started to become collaborative. Not only we, but also SAP developed tools like C-folders, collaborative project management, with the emphasis to share product data, to share information within the company, but also to third parties in the process. And this was also the time when software started becoming part of products. So basically as parts of a bill of material, we had to handle software, we had to drive software through the process. And if we go a few steps forward, then of course we got more and more disciplines into the product. Software became a larger part in the product, and more disciplines became involved in developing a product. And this was a start for model-based systems engineering, or basically really a requirements-driven development process, and integrating this to the downstream applications, that you basically have the link from the right side from the process back to the PLM product development process, and can navigate between the different entities. It was also the time when basically products became smart, and this is still in development, and getting feedback from the product. How is it used, and how can we use the feedback which we get from the product itself, from the sensor readings, back into the product? Or how do we can get feedback from the customer and utilizing it in product development? This was another focus. With collaboration and more disciplines working on products, workflows became more and more essential. So in the past, the workflow was basically, okay, I have an approval workflow, I need to approve a change. But now basically a workflow became the entity, and workflows became basically the driver for work, to distribute work. And basically workflow and big data, or basically the data which you generate in the process, became one thing. They became together, and based on the workflows, you can use embedded analytics. And this is what we will see later, how you can use this to drive process, to drive decisions. And I think a couple of months ago, we all had an awakening event with AI. We had in EPD, in Enterprise Product Development, we have machine learning used since a while. So when you use visualizations, there's a good chance behind the scenes you're using machine learning. But it was a lot behind the scenes. What has changed significantly a couple of months ago with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, that AI became front center. There's now basically no conversation with customers where we don't have AI as a topic. And this will not go away this time. So we will see it. We will see it in the product. We will see it basically as a co-pilot for the user to help generating the process, driving the process.
The solution is process visibility. It is very intuitive in name. So it is a centralized dashboard which helps you measure your pertinent KPIs, the crucial KPIs, the actions which make sense for you. If it is, let's say, a process of supplier change request, then you need to know where is the change, what is the affected objects, when would be this compliance completing for that. Okay, so all that you need, and for that you have to first identify all of that and bring it up into this process visibility. I will show you in the demo, plus I will also show you what are the 3 easy steps to go there. Okay, so this is the centralized dashboard where it helps always for taking a decision based on information, based on the insights which you will gain out of the business processes which are running in your industry already. It is digital too. but it is running at random. So you are going to streamline all of this and bring up into a visibility area where it is like you are seeing the entire thing end to end running. Okay, so the product manager was definitely berserk with all the plethora of requests which were coming into his mind to keep everything end-to-end possibly stitched together. And this is what the visibility dashboard, some snippet I have taken, so what that looks like. Okay, and each one of these are interactive. I will show that to you, and whenever you interact with these graphs, it will take you to the exact reason, exact timeline of those areas of the sub processes. Okay, so 3 easy steps. First step, we have to determine what is the business process at hand you are looking at. First, we can start with a smaller business process just to have us onboarded to this process visibility easily. That is the step 1. Now, step 2 would be in system. This is up till now, this was step 1 in identifying the business scenario. If we come to the step 2, then we see you have to build a workflow in accordance to your business process. Okay, the same steps which would be there in your business process, which you have in the journey, the same you have to put it in the workflow. I will show it shortly. And then it will also have decision gates or the stage gates. Okay, all of that has to be prepared. Once it is prepared, you can apply this workflow, keeping the EPD as a central piece or the contextual piece. Okay, and the third step is you have to associate your deployed workflows with the visibility scenario. It is that simple. So first and foremost, the step number 1, you have to decide on a business process of yours. The step number 2, you have to start building up a process into a workflow in context to a particular EPD or PLM point of view. You have to run those workflows or processes based on or with context to some references. Okay, so what you can do is you can have a workflow selected here. Let's say one of those workflows. Okay, and then you can link some of the references. Like in this case, if I have a reference of an opportunity from a marketeer. Okay, I am taking that, and that can initiate my innovation process coming out from a customer via a marketeer. Okay, so I just take it into account and I start a workflow. So this way you can always start a workflow. This workflow starts running. Now there are too many instances which happens. As a top management or a mid management, you have to not look at each one of these workflows running at several places. Rather, so you have this dashboard which will come in front of you. Now, how this dashboard has come, I will show that to you. Your measures, your crucial key performance indicators, and your dimensions are crucial here. Okay, by default, there is something out of the box which is offered. But however, if you wish to have something, let's say in the automobile, you want to see the safety compliance, how often than not it changes and where are they stuck. So those things, if you see, you can also bring those cards over here. Okay, you have to just configure over here, and through that performance indicator, you can bring up here. Now, this is absolute interactive, as I said you. So if I click on any of the orders which are getting critical, you can do that. At the same time, you can read from your master data all the information in the value help. Okay, so which sales organization do you belong to? If I am particularly responsible for sales organization 1200, then I select this and I see only the ones which is affecting me, my KPIs. Okay, so like that you can always filter it down, and then you can see one of them. So you see the list view has come up and you can see all this data. Now you would be interested why it went into the critical state, right? And then you can see the phases. It is still under design and development. It has not moved along. You can see the path, that what are the things which were expected out of it. So you can see, okay, the project was created, design change request was created, impact evaluation or impact analysis was done. However, the evaluation is overdue. Now here you need to pitch in. Either you can set something which automatically react based on the threshold which you have put. Let's say threshold was 2 days. Now it is around 7.4 days, right? So immediately on second day itself, whenever the threshold is breached, you can take some reactive actions or corrective actions as well. Okay, those options are there.
So in enterprise product development, we use, as in any PLM tool, we use workflow. And you can use workflow, of course, to drive decisions. And of course, you can monitor workflows. And with workflow, you can add data, you can add information. And this is so far a known process. Out of the box, above the workflow, so to say, we have process visibility. And process visibility generates basically the analytics which Ayan has shown. So that means you can create without coding, basically, based on your existing workflows, analytics like show me, as an example, which objects, which collaborations have a certain status, or where do I miss a reaction from a supplier since 3 days, since a certain threshold. So keep in mind you might be responsible for 10, 50, 100 objects or more. Then process visibility gives you out of the box this analytics as a customer, which helps you to get insights into your process, to see what takes longer than it should in order to react. And the good thing is it's really insight to action, because from the analytics which you get, the cards which Ayan has shown, you can navigate immediately to the objects. So if, as example, there's no reactions on some objects for some days, you can immediately navigate from the analytical tile to those objects. And this is a strength that workflow and analytics basically is combined out of the box.
Convert for visualize. And this is an accelerator. Accelerator because it's not a product in the way, but what we want to achieve here is that we want to bring those really amazing tools and capabilities provided by SAP, provided in EPD, together in order to make or to get most out of them. So this is the base stack that we are relying on in the way that we work, and especially in this accelerator scenario that we are presenting today. So in this case, on the one hand, it is included as a capability in EPD, the EPD visualization that we are taking chance of, and it's the same on the workflow management that is also provided out of the box, as we have seen Ayun's presentation, and together with the sub-process visualization. And what we want to talk about today is the link in between visualization and the topic of process visualization and also the EPD visualization, and what makes it worth to take care about these additional steps. Also, the tools itself are so amazing and can be used out of the box. In order to get a better insight and overview, in the same time, we have extended this one. So we want, and we are starting from SAP ECTR. And as it mentioned before, this is a great tool, authoring tool, connection, and all it includes to define, especially in the mechatronic world, to do this on a way of connecting these authoring tools and all the disciplines that are mentioned about it on the one hand, and then go over into the SAP area for control and also for publish. This is what we will see later, and then make use of the results. And our main focus at the moment is the topic of visual spares and services. And visual spares and services are, from our point of view, very interesting, because in today's global business, we see very often the demand that especially vendors in the industrial machinery, for example, are searching for additional business areas, and so especially the visual spares and services, and especially connected to the EPD environment, is here very useful and great opportunity to make use of, and how we can provide the information also for this one and also for the visual work instruction. As we have seen before, the manufacturing topic, so the supply chain is in a greater point of view, is also requiring visual work instructions, for example. Once on the side of services, if you have to do maintenance and things like that, it can help, but especially for the initial creation of products. It is very important to have these visual aspects in order to make it easier and to reduce errors in the way when we are completing our products. So far, we go to an example. On the one hand, a very simple one. So from the ECTR, we get the originals. There we get the cut files. And as you can see here, we have a controller in there. We have the blade on the top. We have the two frames in there. So there are electrical drives inside that will make adjustable height for this desk. And you can imagine there are many topics inside, and not all of them are completely in the original cut files included. So there is an additional source of information, so especially the describing metadata for these models, and also the bill of materials. So in a rough overview on the right, you see a simplified structure for this, and it is very important to bring these together in order to get a really extended visualization. So it is the goal to extend the value of this visualization because of additional data that we can apply. And the data, surprisingly, is available in our environments that we mentioned before. So the S4HANA is providing these, on the one hand, the original, connected to ECTR, and on the other hand, for all these data that we are aware of in our daily work when we are caring about the data in the supply chain.
What we have seen in the various presentations before, we have a S4HANA system normally in place, where we store the general information, logistics information, and so on, and then we connect the EPD to it in order to support the product lifecycle management. And with the presentation before, we had a look more into the discrete or manufacturing with cut and visualization, and what I would like to look more into is with what it means to develop products in the process industries. You need a bit the process as such is from steps and so on, very similar. However, there are some different pieces to it. And normally you start with creating a product brief. That means all the properties and characteristics what your product should fulfill are being defined by the product management and marketing and customer probably, and then this is handed over to specification to maintain all the data in the system of what the new product would need to be, and that would then be needed to be developed with the recipe development. This is part of the EPD for the future and planned for being available in Q2 next year. And during that process, the product compliance needs to be already checked. Then once it's checked, you have a product structure handed over to manufacturing, and then it's going into production. I think this is the flow every one of you should be well aware of. And
AI in everyday life. Maybe without thinking so much about it, you are probably using applications that contain different AI elements already today. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. Let's start with purchase recommendations that you get on shopping platforms like Amazon. Here, a combination of several AI techniques are normally used, for example, machine learning models like predictive analytics or natural language processing. And to make sure that the recommendations that you see are not just like made up and they should be based on genuine user interactions, the techniques are combined with fraud detection. Another example, you're watching right now, me, or here we have my colleague Uta from the AI department. It's cutting out my silhouette when using a virtual background in Teams or other applications to separate what is the person and what is the background. For that, AI techniques like deep learning for image segmentation is used. Let's move on. We have AI chatbots like Siri or Alexa, and they are not programmed to answer a predefined set of questions. Instead, they use something called conversational AI, and that enables them to have a dialogue with you, the end user. Google Maps is another example. Here we find a lot of different AI techniques that are being used. So AI algorithms, they analyze real-time and historical data to suggest the best route from A to B. And you've probably seen that you can plug in here a date and a time for when you want to go somewhere, and you get a result for that specific occasion. And for that, machine learning is used. So, as you see, AI is actually all around us already today. But how did we come there? Let's take a look at the journey. Yes, here to try to demystify AI a little bit. Back in the 70s, we were using simple statistical methods like median or standard deviation. And with time, they developed into more and more advanced methodologies like quality control charts that I used a lot at the university in the 90s. The use case was back in the days mainly to understand past and current situations. But to be able to take right business decisions, it's important to make as accurate predictions about the future as possible. So, over time, the analyses were further developed and various machine learning techniques started to develop. One example of that is deep learning, and it's used for more complex tasks like identifying patterns and relationships in data. And by doing that, you would create a foundation for being able to give more and more accurate and even personalized recommendations. In the end, all of that led up to the development of generative AI, and that has enabled a very high increase of the business value of processing data. But what is Gen AI, and how is it different compared to machine learning? Just like machine learning and also statistics, Gen AI is a class of AI techniques that doesn't only analyze and make predictions or summarizes existing content, but instead it's capable of generating new and original content like texts, images, and even complete data sets. And this is something that we will, my colleagues and I will demo to you in a few minutes. And just like with statistics and machine learning, also Gen AI is a collection of various techniques and methods. The probably biggest buzz today is around GPT. That's short for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And it's a language model that can generate human-like texts based on a given context. These general models, they have been trained on a vast amount of data from various sources like books, articles, and websites. They can be used like we do in ChatGPT, or their algorithms, the algorithms behind that, can be applied on specific data sets like company internal databases. But before we dive into what it looks like in the system, there are some further topics that are connected to AI and I think are extremely important in this context. We're talking about ethics, responsibility, and limitations. AI engines like ChatGPT, they have been fine-tuned to follow a strict ethical code. Maybe you've used ChatGPT, you might have known. It's friendly, it's constructive, and it's very service-minded. It's also restricted, so it doesn't give criminal advice, it doesn't invade in private personal privacy, and it doesn't engage in hateful conversations. You can try to have a fight with ChatGPT, it doesn't work. And the same applies to our applications that contain AI. We have a completely new set of AI product standards, and during development, we have to go through an AI ethics review to ensure that we fulfill our part of the responsibilities. And before we go on, also a few words about limitations. ChatGPT and Gen AI can do a lot, and I'm really impressed with that. Maybe you know this. I think it's really cool, but it also has its limitations. And if you're using and also developing these applications, you have to, or it makes sense to be aware of the limitations. The algorithms are trained to give you answers that sound good. They sound reasonable. But even ChatGPT itself says that the output can be wrong. And as with it is with almost any tool, if you use low quality input, you get low quality output. It makes sense, therefore, to learn how to use the tool, how to ask. And for that, there are, for example, prompt libraries or questions that then make sense to ask to an AI engine. So, for example, it's better to ask clear questions that don't leave too much room for interpretation. Because if you do, ChatGPT will interpret your input and it can give wrong replies. Or, as my colleague experienced the other week, he asked ChatGPT the same question 3 times and he got 3 different answers. But his question was also, one could say, maybe not completely clear. So to try to summarize, AI and generative AI, it's an extremely powerful and useful tool. But you have to be mindful when you use it, and we have to be mindful when we develop that. We have to be aware of its limitations to get out the most of them. So here we talk about how we can utilize Gen AI in the area of process industry and more specifically in recipe development. So we got very inspired by all this AI topic, and we have actually listed quite a long list of different use cases that we could implement here. And here we have 4 suggestions of that. 4 examples of that, to unlock the power of Gen AI in the end-to-end PLM process. It would be possible in the beginning of the process to apply machine learning or Gen AI to generate market trend predictions. And these market trends can be fed to a product brief that we can use to generate an AI product brief. And this product brief then in turn could be fed to the engine to create, for example, draft recipes, and that you can then also engage in a dialogue, in a conversation with the AI engine to tweak, tweak the result so it's the way you want to have it. In the end, we can also imagine an AI-enabled recipe handover to manufacturing. So as you see, we can utilize Gen AI and other AI techniques on several places in our end-to-end process. In the end, of course, we want to achieve faster time to market, reduce the R&D costs, and improve compliance and sustainability, all, of course, as always, to generate as much value as possible for our customers. What I just said about the process industry, it applies more or less in the same fashion for the discrete industry, of course. We can use machine learning or Gen AI to predict, to generate market trend predictions also here, of course. We can use Gen AI to create maybe not a product brief, but requirements models. That can be used to generate enterprise product structures with the help of AI. And again, we can do a Gen AI supported handover to manufacturing and servicing. And I mean, the advantages would be, let's say, more or less identical to the one in the process industry: faster time to market, reduced engineering costs in this case, and improved compliance and efficiency. There have been a lot of studies done on this area, and I think we can discuss the numbers if those are true or not. But I think it's quite easy to agree on the fact that AI and Gen AI will have a huge impact on the productivity on both the discrete industry and also the process industry.
So I'm very excited and happy to announce that we are going to have an e-bite, which is going to be published sometime next year in February, introducing SAP Enterprise Product Development, EPD, for PLM. This e-bite is currently available for pre-order only. So if you are interested to basically get a copy for yourself, we recommend that you use the code PLM10 so that you can get a 10% discount. This e-bite is basically going to delve into the details about the cloud-based PLM offering for your business, how basically product development with cloud PLM can happen. There will be exploration about functionalities to define, develop, and deliver new products, and some integration scenarios with SAP S/4HANA. The authors for this book are Yudis Kannato, Carsten, Ilona, and Ismail. Of course, Carsten, Ismail, any introductory words that you would want to share about the e-bite with our audience members?
Basically, it provides an end-to-end overview about all the capabilities which we develop as part of enterprise product development, and especially also how they integrate, how they complement processes with S/4HANA and other modules.
Yeah, and remember when I said we want to be a co-pilot in your cloud transformation? This is our map, right, of this e-bite to help you how to navigate through the clouds and how to use EPD integrated right in your end-to-end business process. And this is why I'm very excited about this opportunity to start with an e-bite and then later hopefully also have an official book on the new SAP PLM.